What's happening, wrestling fans? We are live. Special edition Two Bros Wrestling Show coming at you on a Friday pre-SmackDown night. Kevin, how are you, brother?
Doing all right and excited, Doug, that we're doing this bonus episode because one, it's very timely, and two, we're going to not only help the folks out who haven't made the switch yet. If you've not made that switch, don't until you finish watching this video, and we're going to save you some money.
Will that be our thumbnail on YouTube? Do not go to Peacock until you watch this video.
Do not go to Peacock just yet,
Do not sub
because
to
if you
Peacock.
are watching this live, if you're watching this live right now, WWE Network started migrating content to Peacock yesterday, but you still have a couple of weeks before you need to make the switch. We're going to give you all those details. We're going to tell you why this is good, why it's bad, why it's happening at all, and everything you need to do before you make that switch.
And I need to know why it's good. Why I have one big pain point of why it's bad, but we'll get to that later. I think it's one of your major pain points with it too. But you want to talk about give us a little bit of background about the network? I didn't realize until I was reading through the Two Bros research team what they put together. By Two Bros research team, I mean Kevin. Kevin has done a lot of the heavy lifting on this one, as he usually does with our episode. I just kind of show up and ramble where Kevin puts things together for us. But I really hadn't realized that the network had been around for as long as it had. And I'm kind of shocked that, I would figure they would have more subscribers than they actually do coming off of this and roll it into a Peacock deal.
And honestly, Doug, that number of subscribers is in some way why this is happening. I mean, the network was popular, but there's levels of popularity depending on how niche your product is. And when WWE Network first launched in 2014, it pretty much killed the wrestling pay-per-view industry. It was a major disruptor. And Doug, you remember, I, two or three other guys, we could get together, throw in $5-10 and
$9.99 a piece.
It essentially was, but that through the 80s, 90s, that's how we watched our pay-per-views. Into the 2000s, though, we stopped watching because honestly, do you even remember how high the cost got on pay-per-views?
What, WrestleMania would pop, what, 60 maybe?
Yeah. So when you have 3-4 folks get together, suddenly you're not throwing in $5 and chipping in for pizza. You're putting in $10-15, and they really price themselves out of the pay-per-view market. And so the WWE Network in that way was a godsend. For $9.99, you got the pay-per-view as well as all this other great content that you wouldn't have had access to otherwise. So really, the legacy of the WWE Network is it destroyed the pay-per-view industry when it comes to wrestling, and it did so for other companies too. Because think about it: if you're an Impact or you're an independent, and it comes pay-per-view time, suddenly you can't charge $30 and look like a bargain compared to WWE charging $50. You got the industry leader with all the big stars only charging you $9.99. But it wasn't all positive, Doug. I mean, yes, we got NXT, we got NXT UK, we got Stone Cold Podcast, we got all kinds of great content that we normally wouldn't get. But there's a downside to the legacy of the WWE Network.
There is indeed a downside to the network, which is this right? It's been around since 14. 7-year run, and we're just over 1 million subs. Or no, we're not over 1 million subs. The network.
That'd be great.
That would be great. But the network had over 1 million subs in that time it's grown. But I think we've talked about this on the show before. One of the definite downsides is, of course, those pay-per-views just aren't that special anymore. And, in my own angry old Mark ramblings, a time or two, I've mentioned how the company, I don't think, has to try so hard to sell pay-per-views because they're going to be on the network every month anyway. So they can just throw, sometimes what could be viewed as some as just pure garbage out there, it's storyline-wise, and it doesn't really matter because they're not selling the pay-per-view. It's, they've already got old marks like us paying our $9.99 a month.
I mean, if we don't like the pay-per-view, we're going to like NXT, that's coming up, or, we're going to go dive into old championship wrestling from, World Championship Wrestling days. They got your $9.99 already. Back in the day when we were all throwing in $10, next month, if they had a bad pay-per-view this month, one of the guys that were chipping in for us isn't going to take the invitation, and we all had to put in more. They had to sell it to you every month. But
Absolutely.
and it also kind of devalued what a pay-per-view is. I mean, it's, I hate to make these kind of analogies, but in some ways it's what streaming is to recorded music. You used to cherish your albums or your CDs, or you sat down with a lyric sheet, but now almost too much of a good thing, where you consume so much that it's all there, but it doesn't quite mean as much.
Absolutely, and hitting a pay per view every month, and now you've got quarterly NXT pay per views, you've got the WWE pay per views. Sometimes I get whiplash, when you tell me, hey, we've got a review show, we've got a preview show, and I'm like, wait, didn't we just do one?
Too much of a good thing.
Absolutely.
And that is part of the legacy of the WWE Network. By and large, I would say it's been a positive, but the reason we're doing this show is that we're having another major shift. Going forward, all of us are going to be consuming a majority of our content like we used to do in the pay-per-view days, in a new fashion. And that also isn't necessarily all bad, but it's also not all good. As you said before, WWE Network was up to 1.1 million subscribers when they first started in 2014. They originally wanted to launch as a network. Like, they went to USA, their primary partner, ironically, the NBC officials in some ways that they're now in bed with Peacock. But at the time, they wanted their own standalone channel, and they kind of got laughed at. So Vince just decided, we're going to go it our own way. And trailblazers, let's give them credit where it's due. Back in those days, cord cutting wasn't what it is today, wasn't quite the thing. You had Netflix, you had a really nascent version, I think, of Hulu. There was no Amazon Prime. There certainly was no Peacock or Paramount Plus or HBO Max. If you think about it, WWE was way ahead of the curve when it came to streaming. However, right now, everything's going to streaming. And so when you're sitting on 1.1 million subscribers, you're a small fish suddenly. And I think Vince knew that ultimately the network, which, again, when they launched in 2014, they were telling investors that they were going to get and secure 2 million. Once they reached the 2 million mark, they'd be making money hand over fist. It was not a money loser. It was profitable, but because they only ever achieved the 1.1 million that they're at as this shift's getting ready to happen, it never was the cash cow that it maybe could have been.
But there's a significant library that's been collected, and again, folks like us go back through the library, and it's not just WWE content. There's a lot of other content out there that's been a godsend to folks like us to relive our childhood.
And again, I think that's a good point as to why the WWE Networks Legacy, for its 7 short years, as it turns out, as a standalone app, is a positive one because they took it upon themselves to preserve the history of professional wrestling. And yes, there's always going to be a bit of a WWE slant to that preserving the history, but still, it is there, and it was a great value, even if it priced down the value of what a pay-per-view itself was. The overall package was definitely, it set the bar, I guess we should say, for what people expect from a wrestling streaming service. But all of that is about to change, Doug, and that's because, as announced in January, Peacock is going to be soon the exclusive home of WWE streaming programming. That happened yesterday. They went live yesterday, and if you've already are experiencing it, leave us some comments and let us know what you're experiencing. If you have questions, be sure to leave comments as we're talking. We'll try to answer as many as we can. But this deal is huge, and it's obvious as to why it's being done when you hear exactly the background of this. It's $1 billion, $1 billion with a B, that Peacock, NBC Universal is paying WWE to be the exclusive rights holder, and that will be exclusive as of April 4th. So it went live yesterday. You got a couple of weeks to make the switch, but come April 4th, if you're in the United States, you're going to have your WWE standalone network sunset. If you're outside of the United States and you're watching us, thank you. We have a lot of international fans, but you all will continue to enjoy the WWE Network as you always have. It will not be going away for international subscribers. But $1 billion, Doug, is the reported figure on this, and that's for 5 years of content. So it's obvious why Vince wants that. That's a lot of money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that is a great deal for the WWE. Just think of how many indie wrestlers that Vince can scoop up and never use on a main channel product with that kind of money. But I mean, seriously though, it is a great deal for the company as a whole. And NBC Universal wins here too because that's bringing. At the end of the day, I'm going to say WWE definitely wins more because Peacock is going to have quite a bit more subs than the network did. But we're going to Vince is handing NBC a million users because a lot of people are going to be coming right across. You or I haven't done this yet, but we have our subscriptions. We're going to hold on until April 4th and then make that leap. But we're heading over there.
Sure.
Peacock alone, there's no reason for me to have Peacock. I have, almost as many streaming services as I did prior to cutting the cord at this point, and I'm sure you do too. But now I'm adding one more. Well, I'm losing one, but I'm going to be adding Peacock now to replace the network.
And that's it right there. The number of services we all subscribe to. Again, when WWE Network launched, they had Netflix, which wasn't a competitor. It was just another streaming service. Now we all subscribe to multiple streaming services. I think I saw something like the average household subscribes to 5, I think, and some higher than that, obviously. So there's a streaming war going on. So for Paramount, you're correct. They are just launched as of last year. They're competing against all these others. As we've seen with everyone going to streaming, not all survived. The DC Universe, went under. Quibi went under. PlayStation View went under. So not all of these streaming services are going to make it. So it's a race to the top right now. And for Paramount, they just spent $1 billion to get a million folks to migrate over to their service. So that's a big win for NBC Universal. For WWE, it's also, like you said, it's obvious. It's that $1 billion, and not just the $1 billion they're getting. Think of the money they're saving, because now you have NBC Universal doing all the infrastructure and the back end work that right. They don't. I mean, their expenses are going to go way down as a result of this move too. So, and for WWE, with their focus on ratings and what they have on Monday nights and Wednesday and Friday nights now on network television, they need eyes on the product. So for one subscription price, yes, you're getting WWE Network, but those Peacock folks that are already subscribed might tune into WrestleMania. They're not going to subscribe to the WWE Network, but they may check out some of the it's part of their subscription.
And right here, what Dave Poole definitely nails it right here, hesitant to go to Peacock because the only thing is The Office. That's why I would have went to Peacock too, is The Office. But absolutely, the WWE content sweetens the deal. At the very lowest tier, it's basically half of what I was paying for the network. But
and more potential eyes on that product. Think about it. 1.1 million is what WWE Network has. Peacock is, by all estimations, beating their own projections. They had hoped after launching, they told investors that by 2024, they would hope to reach 35 million subscribers. And they are already to 33. So they're going to smash that number by far. Now, it should be noted that Peacock doesn't differentiate when that number, what is paid and what is free. Unlike a lot of streaming services, they have a free tier. But if you think you're watching WrestleMania for free, think again. Behind that paywall. There is going to be some content very similar to the free version of the WWE Network that they launched this year that you might be able to access. But yes, more eyes on the product for Vince, and Peacock spent $1 billion to get 1 million more users. You also said the main positive for fans, it's half the price. For $4.99, and we're all used to paying $9.99, you get an ad-supported now. That's the one thing. It comes with ads. Yeah. There is a $9.99 option that eliminates those ads. So if you wanted to pay the exact same price that you've been paying, you can do that and not have the ads. It's not clear yet how the ads are going to be used in like live events, because I don't know how they're going to do that for those of us who might be doing the ad-supported version, and then someone else is watching it live without ads. I think the live experience may be different, but you can understand when in the catalog programming they're probably going to throw some ad breaks in there. But $4.99, and like David said, you get The Office and everything else that Peacock has. So for fans,
WrestleMania, right?
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
I'm wondering, as far as live content goes in the future, now that you've said that, and I'm maybe squirreling here just a little bit, if we'll see more structured matches where they have built-in ad breaks now, just like on live TV, like when we're watching Raw or SmackDown, we have more structured matches where there are those clear places where you can hit an ad break right in the middle of WrestleMania.
That would be
something we're going to see now.
Our very first test of that might be this Sunday, because Fastlane will be the first pay-per-view that is going to be live on Peacock. But cheaper price for you overall. I'm going to first go for the ad-supported version just to test it out and see if the $4.99 gets me what I need from the network. But it is good to have options, and so it looks like on its surface. It looks like a win for NBC, a win for WWE, and we're all saving half of the money that we've been spending. So it sounds like a win for fans, but Doug, it is not all good news.
It's not all good news, because like everything in wrestling, we have the faces and the heels, and we have the good news, bad news section here. So it's not all good news, because and this is one of my big problems with it right now, and I think it's one of yours too, is every television I have in my house is connected to an Alexa-enabled device or a Fire Stick, and I'm not going to be able to watch Peacock on any actual television in my house. I'm going to have to set on my laptop, watch WrestleMania on my laptop, or watch it on my desktop like I have down here in the studio.
You're actually in a little worse shape than me. I have 3 Fire TVs, 1 TV hooked up to a Fire Stick. I do have a PlayStation 4. My PS4, I can download I can download Peacock on it. So I have 1 TV that I'll be able to watch Peacock on, because that, folks, is the big negative. And you may not have heard a lot about that if you've just sort of been hearing it on WWE programming that you need to make the switch. What they're not telling you is that you're not going to be able to view the app on every device. And Amazon is a big miss right now for Peacock, because last year Amazon overtook Roku as the #1 streaming device in the world. More than 50 million folks every month access programming and streaming through some Amazon a device. So if you have an Amazon device and that's all you have, if you have Fire tablets or Fire Sticks, whatever, right now you can't get Peacock. Now that will likely change. It's usually just comes down to money. Last year, HBO Max had the same problem. They launched, and really what it is they're fighting it out for you. And by you, I mean your data. That's what they want. That's what Amazon wants. That's what Peacock wants. Who owns the data that you give up to subscribe? That's always the contention between the platform and the provider. And HBO Max finally worked out a deal, so they were able to get on Amazon devices. When you're trying to win a streaming war, which is what Peacock's trying to do, not being able to be seen by 50 million monthly users is a huge detriment to them. So they will likely go crawling to Amazon, as most people do, and will eventually end up on that service. But right now, that's the biggie. But I've also read that things like Samsung smart TVs do not carry Peacock currently. So you will want to check whatever devices you normally stream on with your WWE network. You may or may not be able to have that same streamability for Peacock. So definitely double check. But if you're a household, that's big trouble.
And this is definitely a Fire household. And this is also a household that enjoys a lot of the WWE programming, not just the WWE pay-per-views and NXT weekly. And it doesn't look like that's really coming over either, at least not at first.
Well, yes, exactly. Right now, what they have on Peacock in terms of content is all the pay-per-views of the past year. Anything new that's being added to WWE Network now is also being added. NXT for this past year. But like if you're going back to like Raw archives, I think they start right now in 2009. SmackDown is something like 2018 or something. And if you're wanting to see ECW or WCW or all the territories, any of the territory stuff, none of that is migrated over yet. Now, it's understandable that at launch, not everything is going to be available, and you're only going to be paying half price from what you're normally paying. So you might be fine for not having everything at first. Peacock has said that by SummerSlam, which is in August, they will have the entire network library available. However, there is some concern that all the content might still not be all the content until you see it show up. I would not guarantee that some of the really, really niche stuff like, Smoky Mountain Wrestling or some of the things that maybe don't have huge viewer numbers, if all of that didn't get migrated over, it wouldn't surprise me. But I'm hopeful that they stay true to their word and it truly is everything because, as you mentioned earlier, it is the repository of wrestling history. It would be a shame if any of it was to no longer be accessible.
And that's a great segue too, because it doesn't sound like it's going to be super easy for me to go back and watch a classic match like Savage Steamboat, in their classic matches. Now I'm going to have to do some really deep diving to search for things now, aren't I?
That is another negative, is that the search function, again, at least at launch, is not what you're used to on the WWE Network. Right now, if you wanted to watch that Steamboat match, Doug, on WWE Network, you type in Ricky Steamboat, and here comes a list of segments involving Ricky Steamboat. You can jump right to that pay-per-view. I was reading that Roman Reigns, one of the biggest stars in the world, if you search the Peacock search bar right now for Roman Reigns, you get 0 results. So if you're going to go obscure and look for like Iron Mike Sharp or Pistol Pez Watley or the Mulkey brothers wrestling back in the day, good luck. If you can't find Roman Reigns, you're not going to find the obscure stuff. And just the events too, not just even the single, like looking at my wrestler. Like supposedly the way that Peacock categorizes their pay-per-views is in seasons. So say you wanted to see last year's Fastlane, you would have to know what number it is. Who knows that?
Yeah, not this guy.
Let's give you an easy example. We all know WrestleMania 3, right? So if you want to see Andre get slammed by Hulk Hogan, you wouldn't look up WrestleMania 3 because it would turn up nothing. What you would do is you would look up WrestleMania, you would go to the WrestleMania page, you would go to season 3 of WrestleMania and play episode 1, which is actually WrestleMania 3. So that's going to take some getting used to.
And it also sounds like I'm not going to be able to go straight to that match either. I'm going to have to start jumping through matches to get to see that Andre slam.
They've not said whether or not they are going to, after launch, they'll work on that. And again, we give them a little bit of a break. We'll revisit this topic, on Two Bros in 6 months, see how they've been doing. But right now, it is so easy to go to a show and just skip segment to segment. Right now, everything on Peacock is one large file. So you're just going to fast forward. You can't jump all the way to the main event of a pay-per-view by just selecting it from a menu. And that's a big negative to not have those markers. And that's one of the biggest things that those that are kind of down on this deal are complaining about thus far, is that it's hard to find anything either by search or once you do find it, if you're looking for something specific, you just have to fast forward. There's no way to jump right to it. Big negative.
Absolutely. That's a huge negative. Maybe I'm naive about how technology works, but it seems like, all that data exists in the WWE, in the backbone of the network as it exists today. It seems like you can just migrate that stuff over, but, maybe it's a lot more complex than that.
Well, I will say one positive that Peacock offers that WWE Network doesn't, and I forgot to list this under the positives, but WWE fans have been shouting for years that they would like the ability, like you have on Netflix and some other services, to download to watch things offline. Peacock offers that, so you should be able to download WWE content now. If you go on the go a lot, if you travel a lot, if you worry about data caps, all these sorts of things, being able to have that portability is actually a big positive that Peacock offers over WWE Network. But in general, as we're noting here, all these differences, in general, it is not as robust an experience as what we're used to with WWE Network. The features are not nearly as rich, at least right now. But again, we're only going to be paying half of what we would normally be paying. Let's give them a little bit of time to see if they build on that. Hopefully they do, because it's definitely a shell of what we have been used to.
Absolutely. Kevin, it is almost time for SmackDown, brother. You want to take the folks home?
Sure. Let's talk about what we suggest you do before you make that switch. First and foremost, when this was announced in January, they said that your subscription would automatically roll over. That actually is not happening. They maybe discovered that it was harder than they thought to do so. So it's going to take action on your part. This is a big negative for Peacock, because think of how many people probably pay that $9.99 a month without thinking about it, or without even realizing they're still paying it. That $1 billion NBC Universal was buying 1.1 million of us, and not all of us are going to make that switch. Some people will decide against it. Some people won't take the extra step. But if you want to follow WWE content, you have to take that step. First and foremost, what you should do is save money on this deal. You can right now receive your first 4 months of Peacock for only $9.99 total. So what you're paying right now per month for WWE Network, you can get the next 4 months of Peacock for that same price. That's half off, only $2.50 monthly. That forgives a lot of sins for the things that you're not. That's a good trade-off for all that you're going to be getting rid of. You have till April the 9th to take advantage of this, though. So you need to make sure you subscribe before April 9th and use the promo code PeacockMania.
What? A promo code?
Promo code.
Peacock Mania, brother.
And you got to also know that before you make this switch, remember, your account begins anew. So if you have anything that you're continuing right now in your continue to watch list, that isn't going to be going over with you. So make sure you finish anything that you're close to watching. Similarly, your watch list also is not going to be a thing, and your favorites are going to disappear as well. So I'm going to make a note personally of what I have in my watch list so that I can re-add it in Peacock. And for some things like Mid-Atlantic Wrestling, I'm going back through all of the old Mid-Atlantic archives, through the old Mid-South archives. I'm going week by week, starting in the early 80s, watching all of this. I'm nowhere near being done. The territories aren't even on there. Hopefully they will be by SummerSlam. So I want to remember where I'm at in my watch. And so I'm going to take some screenshots. I'm going to make some notes. We'd advise that you absolutely do the same, or otherwise all that content's going to be lost to you and you won't remember where you were.
Oh my goodness. It's a lot to digest, and I think, well, good, bad, or ugly, regardless of what we think, really doesn't matter, because it's a done deal. It's happening. It has potential to be great, and I think it does have potential to bring a lot more eyes to a wrestling product that hasn't had as many eyes as it has in the past on it again, which I think is a definite plus for all wrestling fans.
And speaking of that, if you've tuned in to us and just to find out some of the things you should be doing, and you're not a regular viewer of the Two Bros Wrestling Show, we would ask you to do the same. Subscribe to us. We are live every Sunday night normally, usually at 8 o'clock, and we will cap off the week's worth of wrestling news. We'll dive into a deep topic every single week, a different one, and then we'll close by giving you the match of the week, your performer of the week, and the botch of the week. So we're live every Sunday at 8 o'clock, except on pay-per-view Sundays, which is what's happening this Sunday, Doug.
Yeah, it seems like it's happening every Sunday right now, Kevin, but that's okay. We're in WrestleMania season. That's right. This week after Fastlane, we will be on after the show.
That's what we do on pay-per-view nights. We review immediately after we get on here, and we talk to you all about it. So if this is your first time seeing the Two Bros Wrestling Show, please start tuning in to us on Sundays. We'd love to have you, but we do appreciate you tuning in for this and everything you need to know. Doug, I'm waiting until at least April 2nd, April 3rd before I make the switch. I see no reason to do it otherwise.
I'm right there with you, brother. And for others, those folks that aren't watching this live, give us a like, give us a subscribe, comment down below. For those folks that did tune in live, we're going to let you go because my counter says we have about 40 seconds until SmackDown goes live. And I know all you old wrestling marks just like us and those young wrestling marks are ready to watch some wrestling. So we're going to let you go. Thanks for watching. Thanks for inviting us into your homes. And we'll see you on Sunday night. Good night,
Good
everybody.
night.